Chapter 20 Mom's Week. Mr. Crazily starts history class with a question. How many of you have been watching on TV or reading about the school protests happening around the country? Only a few kids raise their hands. I suppose we should spend some time one day figuring out the best phone apps for news and information for you all, the teacher says with a sigh. But for now, let's talk about how what's going on in other kids' lives can affect all of us. What do you mean? Logan asks. Let me explain, Mr. K continues. Do any of you know why young people are protesting? Gretchen answers first. Yeah, there have been a bunch of school shootings in the past few years. Students are saying, enough of that, and trying to figure out what they can do so it doesn't happen again. Maybe walking out of school can help change gun laws and stuff. It's got to be crazy scary to have that happen at your school, Jonte adds, scrunching his face like he's thinking real hard. Lots of us nod in agreement. Do students have a right to walk out of school? Mr. Crazily asks. Why not? They walked in, Jonte says, breaking a little tension. Do they have a right to protest? Mr. Crazily presses. Absolutely, Amani says, her face serious. Real people died in those school shootings. Kids our age. We have a right to be safe. Very good, Amani, Mr. K tells her. Then he asks, what kind of things in the past have led to demonstrations that have led to change? Voting rights for women, I offer. Racial discrimination. Violence, other people say. All of this is heavy stuff, Mr. Crazily says. In the fight for civil rights, for instance, there is sometimes violence, terrible violence, but it eventually led to good as the minds and hearts of people were changed. Not enough, Jonte mutters. Mr. Crazily then surprises me when he says, Perhaps you're right, Jonte. I don't get what this has to do with us, though, Cecil says. Good point. Brings me around to what I planned for today. What I want to focus on are the many good books and stories that were written so that no one ever forgets all that happened. Writers rock. A couple of us say. And then we are going to write? This will be our... And Mr. Crazily says, and then we are going to write. This will be our 6th grade start to making the world a better place. Mr. Crazily finishes. I think most of the kids in the class either groan or sigh or roll their eyes, me included. I raise my hand. What are we supposed to write about? First, you read and research. More groans. Then you write. Sighs. Mr. Crazily taught 6th grade for a long time. He totally ignores our groans and pushes on. Sometimes it takes a really bad thing to bring out positive change. Like what? Jonte asks. Spent a lot of time reading your history homework last night, did you? Mr. Crazily says, raising an eyebrow. The Celtics were in the playoff, man. That was history in the making, Jonte calls out. Lots of kids nod in agreement. Nice try, Mr. Crazily says with a laugh. Catch up tonight, okay? Chapter 27 in your American history book talks about how churches were bombed, houses were burned, people were lynched. History made. His face is dead serious now. What's lynched? I asked. I've heard the word before, but I'm not exactly sure what it means. Good question, Isabella. It's when people decide to be judge, jury, and executioner without following any laws. People were hanged or shot or imprisoned without ever getting a proper hearing. But, I hardly know what to say. That's really awful, I exclaim. Imani raises her hand. Hanged, like a noose around their neck? Mr. Crazily takes his time. The classroom goes quiet. Yes, it was a terrible, terrible thing. They show that in cowboy movies all the time, Logan blurts out, no big deal. I guess it would be a big deal if it was happening to you, Amani replies, her voice hard. Logan puts his hands around his neck and fakes like he's choking. That is not funny, Logan, Mr. Crazily says, his voice rising. Stop that. Heather looks squarely at him, shakes her head, and frowns. I'm not sure he notices. He's so busy acting up. Just doing a little show and tell. Logan does it again and pretends to gasp. I said stop. Mr. Crazily actually yells. Okay, my bad. Logan puts his both hands in the air and tries to laugh it off. Heather puts her head on their desk. Imani, however, is standing up. Mr. Crazily finally notices her. Imani? I've never seen Imani so angry. Her fists are clenched. Her face looks, how can I explain, old, like a grown-up's, like somebody who's lived 1,000 years. It's kind of chilling and impressive. I've never actually seen Imani really angry before. She's staring Logan down like he's some kind of stranger, not the kid we've both known since 1st grade. You Logan are an idiot. Everybody kind of sucks in their breath. She narrows her eyes at Logan. She narrows her eyes as Logan's go wide. Real people were executed by hanging with a rope and a noose. People like me, that is not funny. I'll say it again. You are an idiot. And then she sits back down. The room gets scary silent. Everybody stares at Logan, who's slumping as far down in his seat as he can without actually getting under it. Sorry, he mutters. But he doesn't look sorry. Mr. Crazely looks from Amani to Logan and tells Logan he will see him after school for a whole hour of detention. Logan starts to protest, but a stern look from Mr. K shuts him down.